You are listening to the Independent Dealer Podcast with hosts Luke Godwin and Jeff Watson.
Hello and welcome to the Independent Dealer Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Dealership Consulting. Luke, we are a full solid 5 days out of Buy Here, Pay Here United. We had a great time down there in Las Vegas, chit-chatting with a bunch of great Buy Here, Pay Here dealers. You recovered?
Yeah, finally. I've been traveling so much. I didn't know what day it was, what town I was in. So glad to be home back in the dealership, trying to iron things out that we've learned. And it's been a busy week of training and getting people back on the right course, because there was a lot out there, man. It's, from getting cars ready and talking about service to buying cars, all the way down to the changing underwriting. And, we talk about when you go places and you come back, you really shouldn't do wholesale changes, but we've already been working some of the new processes, and we were able to come home and fine tune a little bit. And I think it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it's really, really great. And to preface this whole thing, thank you everyone who came and said hi to us and talked to us. And of course, Luke and I being around 300 other Buy Here, Pay Here dealers is like, when we're just like a pig in a freaking sty. Like, that was just great. It's so much fun to be around other dealers. We are, really the best business owners, entrepreneurs on the planet are used car dealers. We're scrappy, we adjust, we find ways to make it work. We're out there. It's where the pavement meets the road. It's not always sexy and flashy and fancy, but like,
I often wonder about that. We're so much different than a lot of other retail people, because we essentially have to manufacture our product
mm-hmm.
and then we have to source it, remanufacture it,
mm-hmm.
then sell it, then lend
mm-hmm.
it, then collect it. There can't be anybody else doing the amount of all the moving pieces in what we do. There can't be another, retail. I'm sure there is, but retail company that does the things we do. It's hard.
There's not many. You think about it. Even if you try to finance, mattresses or jewelry or something, these are coming out of the box. They're pre-done. If you're a new car dealer, you're getting things from the new car store and you just have to sell it, and then you're servicing a new product for sure. Our niche is tough, and we're continually adjusting, and we wear every single hat. That's what's so interesting about these conventions is we're talking about sourcing, we're talking about reconditioning, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about sales and pay plans, and we're talking about, from a Buy Here, Pay Here standpoint, now we throw in everything about collections and repossessions and, legal issues. So really hats off to all of us used car dealers out there. I think I just want to pat myself on the back, coming back, having a little bit of a slow couple weeks here at the dealership, always kind of questioning your choices, but man, it's a lot of fun. And we had a great time in Vegas. So to get to the point, we're going to share with you some of our top takeaways, things that we took back to our dealerships. And like Luke said, we always try not to come back and just like stick a fire hose in a teacup when we get back here. I definitely recommend all dealers to kind of pump the brakes, because when you go to your first couple conventions or 20 groups, you have such a page of notes that you want to just come back and just tear up the whole place and rebuild it from the ground up. But that can often, your employees are always like running for cover when you get back from a convention or something.
Oh, for sure. Especially when you take somebody with you too, and it's, and they come back fired up. There's never, people who've never been to the convention. So it's pretty awesome. Jeff, one thing we didn't put on the list, but just still the talk out there when it comes to sourcing inventory, that number one, it's hard. Number two,
mm-hmm.
that there's not enough out there. And number three is let's just talk about sourcing from the public. I'm trying it. Jeff, I think you're trying it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, right?
No.
And what I've found that there's so many other people out there trying it, because, you're trying to beat people to the punch to source the inventory, and they already have offers from CarMax, from Carvana, from your local, Toyota store. They've got all these freaking offers. And if you don't get to them quick enough, or if you do get to them quick enough and their price was great, they've already got offers on the price. It's hard. And I'm not sure I have the ability just to stay focused on it. What are you doing there?
So what's interesting is, I just barely 2 days ago, I sat down and I looked at every car that I've bought in 2021. And I have a report set up that will pull up my source, right? Yeah. So I look at my three main sources, which are, auction, backlot, private party. And then I excluded trade-ins and repos because those are kind of fake. So then I went through each one of those and I look and I say, okay, what is my average recon for all those cars? And then what was my all-in cost to retail, which is book. I just took, book value. I didn't say what could I retail those for, because obviously there's some real outliers in there. When you get into the cheap cars, of course you can sell them for way more. But anyways, so what I'm trying to basically compare is, am I getting a cheaper car from the public? Am I putting less money into it? And so when all is said and done, am I into that car in a better position compared to retail? So what I have found over the last 3 months for me is, yes, I am putting less money into the cars that I'm buying from the public. My recon is about $500 less, which for me is about a third less. I typically put about $1,500 into a car. The stuff I'm buying off the street, I was putting about $1,000 into it. So, but I'm also overpaying for those cars a little bit. So at the end of the day, yes, I'm still into those cars the exact same amount as I'm into a Manheim car or a backlot car, something that I'm buying from an auction. But my argument is, I'm spending less time in recon. The turn time is way faster, right? Because these things only need a set of brakes and, nothing major. They're not bogging down my shop.
I'm only spending $500 on those.
Yeah. Also, the cars, when I looked at the list, they're in demand cars. These are cars that were real gems, and I'm not going to find them at the auction. So I still think that holds up. Also, we'll go over this in a future episode, but man, I've been putting PSI on every single car out of Manheim, and I'm sending back 1 out of 4. I'm not even taking delivery on 1 out of 4 cars.
I'm not even going to go down this route with you.
So I'm going to get the math for you, because I know you don't agree, but I'm going to give you the math on this. So had I just taken all those cars in from Manheim and I had not been PSIing them and sending back the real junk, my recon would have been through the roof on auction.
Yeah,
So, anyway. But back to the bigger discussion of, I think you have to treat that buying from the public, it's a business. And that's what's funny. It's not a guy, it's not just your owner going out and buying a couple cars on a Friday morning. It is a full-time job. So if the economics work out for you to have somebody full-time in Facebook Marketplace, in your local listings, visiting people, having them come to your dealership, and create it like a business, that's what I think you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a true vehicle buying center with salespeople and their outbound sales. People have to know cars. You're so right, Jeff. It's a process. It's not somebody you can take from your dealership that's going to do sales and this. They can't do it. Mm-hmm. If you're going to truly make this work, it's got to be one person. Yeah, maybe 2 people, depending on how many you're doing. I think you possibly even need Kelley Blue Book Buying Center to really push a lot of that stuff to you. We had so many people come up and talk to us about this because we're doing it. It's not something you can do half-heartedly. And if you do it half-heartedly, you're going to get half-hearted results. And I think I told that to somebody that, I started out having fun with it, and then it got aggravating because half the stuff on Facebook is scams, and the other half on all the other sites are priced way too high. Mm-hmm. And so then you're just kind of throwing your hands up in there, and you're tired of wasting the time doing it.
Yeah. And so what I'm going to do is I'm making a bigger commitment. The guy that I hired that's going to handle a lot of the car buying for me, we have a .com that we set up, and I'm trying to drive inbound leads, right? So kind of like the Kelley Blue Book Buying Center, which I know I can't compete with, but on a smaller level, I can run Facebook ads, I can run things and try to draw inbound people that will go to my website, my .com, submit their car. And
yeah, we've done that.
My guy can follow up on them. So two ways. Yeah. Full on buying center, getting the inbound leads, but then also having the time and the energy to run out and chase those outbound guys that might be a good steal.
Yep.
What other notes did you take away, Luke?
Yeah, we probably talked about this too much last week, but it's underwriting. And it's about speed of underwriting, Jeff. Mm-hmm. And what data do we truly, truly need? And how can we get that data? And how can we get it fast? And how can we get a fast approval?
Mm-hmm.
Just think that every time someone logs onto your website and submits an application, they're there for one reason, right, Jeff?
Mm.
To buy a car and to get approved, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they sent us an application, they probably sent 7 other people applications, okay?
Mm-hmm.
How quickly and how painless can we get an approval for that customer?
Mm.
And that's something I believe that, so I started digging into the data of, all right, how many true applications did we get last week, or last month? And we took the numbers, and let's say we had 140 applications, right? And we were able to deliver 28 of those 143. Well, how many did we actually have approvals? And what was funny is we had 35 approvals. So I said, okay, well, how many not approvals did we have, or turn downs? And it was like 50 something. And then we had all these conditioned and not quite approved. Well, my opinion is the reason they were not quite approved is because they went dead. Somebody else approved them faster. Or we started asking for so many documents that they just threw their hands up and walked away. And so we've got to make it easier. And that is what I came back this week. And we're exploring some new data that we can use to really streamline that. It's essentially a driver's license, your last pay stub, and the bank link. And if you can do that and everything looks okay, we're going to give you approval within 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. So if you have the bank link and you see their deposits, you really don't need a pay stub.
You don't need a pay stub. The only reason we got the pay stub was to show that you were there last week.
Right. So here's what's interesting to me is 2 things is you're talking about the speed of approval, but you're also talking about the maximum approval. And I think sometimes that's where us independents can get tripped up is, sure, I can get you approved for a car, but I don't know. I think you're kind of in that gray area. I don't really want to take a big risk. So I'm only going to approve you for the $8,000 car. Whereas the dealership down the street has got them approved on the $12,000 car. And that's where they're going to go. They can afford the $12,000 car. I just don't know it because my underwriting model is not sophisticated enough to know that I can approve that customer for a nicer car than what maybe my internal gut thinks that they should have. Right.
Yeah. Everybody listening out there, and I was not a fan of this for years, but I've changed in the last year. If you are not using a scoring model that is automated and you're still using your gut, you are missing a lot of deals, and you're approving a lot of deals that probably don't make sense. You got to get away from your gut. You've got to use what the data tells us, but we also have to have the right data as well.
Yeah. And what we talked about last week was verifiable data, not subjective data, not what they say. Oh, I've been here for 10 years. Oh, I've been on my job for, 6 years. It's like, no, you've been in the same industry for 6 years. You left this job and came back,
which is not a problem.
You're part-time, so we're using some of those numbers, but we can't verify that.
It's all about
why are we even
verifiable,
putting it in our underwriting model?
Verifiable, good data.
Yeah. And then you're also able to get your salesman to focus more and spend time on those good ones, right? So if I can have an application come in and a 5 or 10 line application, I can decide whether or not this customer is an upper tier type customer or someone I really want to spend time with. Then my salesmen know who to really focus on quickly. If they come in on a Monday morning and have 20 applications in the queue, they can jump on the top 4 or 5 that are most likely to happen, right?
Yep, 100%.
And not get bogged down on trying to get a square piece to fit into a round hole.
Verify the data you have and roll it.
Yeah. That makes me think of when they talk about data. I know we talked about GPSs last time. And so I've been thinking a lot about that. And if I'm going to go back to a wired GPS, only for the reason that I can now get better mileage reporting.
Pastime, they're a great person in the industry. You're the vendors that really help you out and give you some of this data, and Pastime is a sponsor of ours now, but I've been using Pastime for probably for 5 or 6 years now. And the wired is the way we've always gone. That's our first line of defense is wired GPS. And the data is out of this world, man. We've only been using wireless for a little bit, but we use it in tandem with wired. And I don't know, is the wired data that much better, Jeff?
I think with wired, and again, I haven't dug in it too deeply, it's on my to-do list, you get real-time odometer or more accurate odometer, right? Because your GPS is constantly tracking. It's alive. Right. Whereas with the wireless, it's only checking in, once a day. So you don't really know what happened in between those check-ins. So using some of that GPS data is really interesting to me, and to set up more alerts and alarms to high mileage drivers. I don't know what I would do with that information. It's not like I'm going to bring them in and rewrite them, but anyways,
your collectors can use that information to know how far to let a customer go. In past time, they'll set up those reports for you, because we actually did this when we got back. And if customers hit a certain amount of miles within a certain period of time, if you get a report on that, you can send it to your collectors and say, hey, just to let you know, this customer is driving a lot. And so either they've got a job using their car. So if they tell you they don't have the money to pay, they're wrong. Or you can be quicker to repossess a car.
Or they ain't got no job because all they're doing is driving.
Is riding. Yes. So if you do see somebody abusing something, you have a tighter leash when it comes to collections.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the data really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So anyways, that's our plug. That's our sponsorship for Pastime, guys. If you're not using GPSs and you're in the buy here, pay here and retail, got to do it. I don't know anyone who's not anymore.
I saw one of our friends had a truck stolen off their lot last night.
Yeah.
I wonder if they had a GPS in it.
Probably wouldn't have posted that if he did. He'd already know where it's at.
Man, I'm so sick for him. So sick.
There is that's an interesting argument. You put your GPSs in at the time the car hits the lot during the recon process, wire it in, especially if you're exclusively buy here, pay here. Then
we do. 100%.
No big deal. Everything's going out on a note. Mine's a little, I kind of pick and choose, but with today's world, man, that's a large peace of mind just to have a GPS installed in every car. And even if you never have to use it, but the word gets out in your neighborhood and your community that you're a GPS dealership, that's not going to be a target that people are going to look at.
And may even save you some money on garage liability too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Luke, a little bit about CRM. We go back to underwriting, kind of learning that the lines between underwriting and CRM and kind of becoming blurred, right? I mean, it's not even a thing. I don't know if CRMs really even exist anymore.
So, big retail establishments need a very robust CRM with service departments and things like this. You need the CRM because you need to be touching the customer. The problem is you've got to have somebody to manage that CRM. So that's another manager. Then you have to have your salespeople doing it properly, and you have to have your service department using your CRM properly. So most of us are too small for that, Jeff. And when it comes to buy here, pay here, people buy cars quickly. So when they send that application in, you probably have a 7 to 14 day window to get them approved and sold. And after that, you're probably calling and wasting their time, and you're wasting your salespeople time. So I don't believe that CRM is the future when it comes to buy here, pay here. I think it's a integrated model of CRM and approval software that sets tasks and allows you to text through them and call through them. And that really gives you more or less than a full CRM, but more than just a phone, a phone tree or, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And I've had that philosophy for a while, creating these endless tasks for your salesman to email and text and call and just keep hounding these people for the next 6 to 12 months. I haven't really seen that make a lot of sense. You work the lead and in 7 to 12 days, it's dead. And then guess what? Pick that lead up again in 24 months,
or 12 months.
Remarket to them when they're back in the market for a car through your outbound sources.
And honestly, the most important data you have is, I can't remember the guy who we had on here, maybe Andrew Street, maybe we talked about that first data, the first degree data or whatever it was. It's the people you currently have as customers and the people you sold to before. That data is so important. Download it out of your DMS, upload it to Facebook, and use it to market that way. Have mailers once a year. All these things are twice a year. All these things to keep the people you've sold and the people you currently have on the books engaged is what we really have to do.
Mm-hmm. Luke, anything else that stuck out to you from last week?
That was my list there, Jeff. I picked 3 things and nailed them.
The only other thing I brought home for me was the importance of processes and procedures and having accountability in your dealership. I'm going to take a more concerted effort to have kind of a controller or a comptroller or whatever you call them, to look at every expense, to look at every credit card charge, to reconcile those to the parts management system, to reconcile those to, your vehicle expenses. I think if you grow past 3 to 4 to 5 employees, and you start getting stuck in that 10 to 20 area where everyone kind of has a specific job and no one's job is to really kind of look at each individual expense, and you have so many transactions coming through that it becomes kind of a big blur and a big nightmare. You eventually have to kind of rein it back in and say, hey, I need some really tight policies to make sure that things aren't slipping through the cracks.
Well, the one concern I have there is you got to hire someone that knows how to set those policies up. Unfortunately, I'm not smart enough when it comes to a business to the accounting side of the business to know how to set up a process where for every part that comes in, make sure it's put on every ticket or gets returned.
Yeah.
That is something that it's
well, what's happened is when you're small and you start getting to that mass capacity, everyone starts cutting corners, right? So you start ordering parts and you're not documenting things and you're not tracking core returns and you're not, looking at every invoice and allocating it to each car because it's just a time thing. You can't do it. So it's very intuitively hard to say, I'm going to take a step back in efficiency to be more effective or more detailed in my accounting, So it really is, you have to go to the guys and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I either need to get you a helper or get a parts manager or have a comptroller that's going to come in and do it. And they're going to have you go through new policies. When a part comes in, it's got to be checked in through the system. Don't just grab a receipt and throw it in the box,
Yeah.
You've got to put it into the system and it's got to be checked off as received, because now when I go to do a reconciliation, I better have, 20 liters of oil sitting on the shelf, and I better have a receipt for a core return on that transmission.
Liters, did you all of a sudden move to Europe?
Yeah. What did I say? In liters? Yeah.
Liters,
we do everything in liters in Utah. I run on the metric system exclusively.
And mountain time. Who knew? Oh my God.
So, but you know what I'm saying? Like you really have to take that step back. And that's something I'm trying to wrap my brain around and then build out those policies, because guess what? I don't know that anyone has them. The big guys probably have them.
Yeah.
But they're not.
I'd be willing to bet you they still lose 5% of parts.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I don't know, it's when you're not charging a parts markup, you're losing so much money.
Well, I was looking through an invoice from a parts supplier the other day, and I just real quick took a look. I'm like, wait a minute, we got charged twice for the same transmission. What happened? And I go, oh yeah, they were supposed to credit that for us. I'm like $2,000? Like that just, I almost just cut a check for an extra $2,000 because I didn't look.
Or the $500 cord that's been sitting in your shop for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Or then when you send it back, it doesn't get credit back. Anyway. Yeah.
Incredible. So anyways, kind of realizing that, yes, it does take time. Yes, you do have to slow down, and it may cost you some money to save money. Eventually you get to the point where that's a very, very important thing. And if you as the dealer owner don't have time to do it, or the brain power or efficiency, you really do need to find someone who can, or build out some processes and then teach it to somebody and have kind of division of labor and division of responsibilities, so there's no sketchiness. But
sure.
Luke, that's a lot of stuff. I mean,
yeah,
I got a couple other things that I went over, but we won't get into it because I think that's a lot for dealers to kind of process. And it's one thing at a time, one step at a time. Again, we say this a ton. I've been to dozens and dozens of conventions and dozens of 20 groups, and I'm still bringing back notes on crap that I should be doing.
For sure. And let's give a shout out to Buckeye. Buckeye Dealership Consultant is someone who puts their money where their mouth is. This conference was probably the best conference we've ever been to. And And it's because of visionaries like Rob Fox and Sean Peterson, and Jason Gosling, who did this along with all the other vendors that put this on. But Buckeye is someone, we talked about reinsurance. We've talked about PSI, which Jeff has given his money to Manheim for some reason on that. VSI and all these things. But Buckeye Dealership Consultant, not only do they have those products, which everyone should use, right, but they're also giving us all this, this great content. And I think there's more to come with their dealer performance groups, and supposedly they're building out a training module. So so much to come from Buckeye.
Yeah. Great, Luke. See you next week.
Dealers helping dealers. Please leave us a review and subscribe. The Independent Dealer Podcast.